Alright guys, Scrappy again. I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Some big scrim results going down last night, but also a major leak as to what the CDL salaries are looking like behind the scenes for this upcoming season. And these are some serious numbers that are worth discussing. The discrepancy between the top paid player and some of the weaker paid players in the league is pretty remarkable. Some players say this is cap, that is not my actual salary. There's clearly a bit of guesswork at the very least that has got into this, but as far as many understand, the top line figures may well be pretty on the money, and especially Cellium's figure has turned an awful lot of heads. Very much enjoy your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Couple of things to start off with here, because we've talked a fair bit about the meta so far here in Black Ops 7. I like this game. I think it plays well. The maps are pretty good compared to what we've had. The one thing that I do think it's lacking compared to some other titles that we've had is the meta. I just don't think the meta is as fun, or, you know, the Drazah and the M15, it just doesn't hit the same as we've seen other metas in the past. Now, Shotzzy is grinding against Huke here, playing a little 1v1 on the Colossus, and he's using the MPC, which is effectively the MSMC, and, well, looks pretty. It's got the OpTic skin on it. The iron sights are different to what they used to be back in Black Ops 2. They also brought it back. It was the X, I don't know what it was called, the XMC or something like that in Black Ops 3 or whatever it was. The MSMC revival they did then, but it's back in this game as well. Shotzy's been playing around with it. Maybe there is something in this. I don't expect the players to change what they want to run. You know what the players are like. They like the Drazah, they like the M15. They're probably going to try and stick with it. But they will try the other weapons, and it's not like there's this massive, DLC influx of guns that are going to change the game totally. This is what Shotzzy was running if you guys are interested to try this one out and see if maybe there's a way that we get a slightly different meta in the relatively near future. The other thing that was discussed was about overload. So Dashy had a few thoughts on it. People were complaining it's too hard to score, so I don't know why the ball has a pistol. You've got to have a pistol now. I hate that you can't have your knife out when you've got the ball. No movement and no gun, he says. The film was talking about it a little bit. Don't know what you guys think about this. I think overload has bigger problems, frankly, than the ball situation. I actually kind of like the move to the pistol. It also makes it clearer from when you're watching. If someone's got their pistol out and you're watching their POV and they've got the pistol out, you're pretty sure they've got the ball. Like back in the day, in Uplink, it was obviously very clear who had the ball, right? And in Capture the Flag, sometimes it was a little bit difficult when you're watching on mute or something, watching on the side, who's actually carrying the flag, because you can't, in Halo, you can see them carrying the thing, whereas in COD, it was just stuck to your back, you couldn't really see it. In Uplink, you knew, because they were literally carrying the ball in their hands, and they obviously had the extra armor and all that. Now, in this game, in Overload, you do have the outline of the character from the other team's perspective who's holding it, but if someone's got their pistol out, they're probably carrying the objective right now, which I think is a nice one for the fans. It also has not made it massively harder to score. I think the teams are getting better at attacking anyway. When you see scrims and you see matches, in Capture the Flag, we used to get 0-0 games up sometimes almost to the full 10 minutes, right? It was super cagey. Not to say that it can't be like that in Overload, but as I said the other day, to a certain extent, attack is the best form of defense, because in Capture the Flag, if you went on the offensive and pulled out their flag, they could pull yours as well, and then you'd be in a bit of a standoff again. Whereas in Overload, if, you grab the device, then they obviously can't score. In Uplink, for example, you would be able to grab the ball and run back to your own spawn, and then pretty much, anyway, you just run around the map, and then if they tried to track you down, you could just throw it off the map, and then it resets. So, that was, defense was actually a factor in that game, and maybe that's fine, but it did make things kind of strange. Like in Advanced Warfare, people will remember, if you guys were watching back then, a 15, and even in the other games, so the 15 was a very common strategy. So there were certain spots on the map you could throw the ball where it would sit there for 15 seconds before resetting, rather than just disappearing and immediately resetting. That was like a common strategy. People would pick the ball up and just throw it into a 15 spot and effectively run down the clock. A bit cheese. And, I think Uplink was a fantastic game mode. But in some respect, Overload is all-out warfare all of the time, and I don't think it's difficult to score, even with the whole pistol shenanigans, because we're still seeing relatively high-scoring games. So, speaking of that, let's talk about a couple of scrims. OpTic, they turned the streams on again last night. They played 2 scrim sets, one against Cloud9 and one against the Los Angeles Thieves. This is a clip here from playing the C9 boys. They had a very traditional scrim result here for OpTic against Cloud9, where they won like 6 or 7-1. This is what they will do, it seems, right now against most teams, but LA Thieves do have a pretty good record against OpTic in scrims. Maybe you wouldn't expect that to be the case in an actual CDL match, certainly not how it's been lately. Shotzzy's absolutely running worlds here on the Scar, and yeah, they had nothing they could do about that one. So the Cloud9 series eventually ends 6-1. The only map they lost was the Scar Overload that was 3-2. Most of the hard points were not especially close. 250-115 on the Scar, 250-95 on the Den, 251-90 on the Exposure. Colossus and Blackheart were closer, but yeah, reasonably comfortable for OpTic in the end, as you might expect. C9, I think, are making some improvements, but still, there's a long way for those guys to go. But the LA Thieves scrim was very interesting. So LA Thieves came out hot. They quickly went up, what, 4-5-0 in this series? Yeah, they won every single one of the hard points. Now, look, we have seen this before. Earlier, a couple of weeks back, Thieves were playing OpTic in a scrim and they won it pretty convincingly. I think they won the hard points 4-1 on that day. There were some very close maps in here. Interestingly enough, the Den, like the Dens that OpTic play seem to either just be demolition jobs one way or the other. Mostly they're destroying teams, but on this one they got beaten. Colossus was 250-236 to Thieves, 250-233 on the Scar, 250-248 on the Exposure. That was a banger. The Blackheart was not as close. Then OpTic won the Den Overload pretty handily. They won the Exposure in an overtime, and then they got 5-0 on the Scar. So all very interesting, and just some of the screenshots here really from this series. This was again turning heads because people were like, damn, they won by 130 points and Kenny was still negative somehow. But yeah, this is a Scrap and HyDra takeover for sure. Now, it's not like Kenny was getting fried every single map, just some selected highlights right about here. I think the final one that they ended up winning on the Scar, Kenny goes 28-24. So, you know, Thieves doing the job, and it's scrims. At the end of the day, it's not the biggest deal in the world. LA Thieves will not be coming home from this scrim and saying, oh, you know, we're back, we're the best team in the game again, or we're right up there with OpTic. OpTic clearly still the team to beat, but I think it's results like these that show Thieves that, okay, we don't necessarily need to drop Kenny for a Luca, right? I mean, I'm not saying that FaZe think that way after they got 7-1 by OpTic yesterday, but you had Shotzzy coming out on stream and saying that he thinks FaZe are terrible. They slammed him like 7-1 in scrims yesterday. They've not looked good in their respawn mode at all so far, FaZe, really. They struggled to win a hard point until they beat Toronto on that Colossus the other day. So, you know, I can see why maybe FaZe, there's more logic there. Whereas Thieves, they still see that with time they can make it work. But, you know, I think Thieves are particularly reliant on their heavy slaying because they don't have the objective power to back it up as they did last season. Now, let's talk about the salaries, though, because this was really the big drama of yesterday. I'll share a couple of clips, but it all came out of this. This post was made on the Call of Duty subreddit yesterday and purports to show the salaries per year of all the players on the varying teams. So let me share a couple of clips here, and then we'll discuss this in a bit more detail.
Well, there's no min, yeah. Well,
why are they all getting 60 then? That's
yeah, well,
I mean, mine is real for sure. So.
Oh shit.
I can tell you there are some are probably accurate and some are not.
Yo, let's go. So mine is correct. So. Nah, bro, I'm telling you right now, I know numbers. Yo, I know numbers, bro. This looks accurate. I'm not even trolling. Like this actually looks accurate. Some of them are.
Dude,
but are they close, right? They're probably close, I feel. I was gonna say, you want to know why a lot of these salaries are as big as they are? You want to know why?
Tell me.
It's because of me, Cole. It was because of me.
Hey, yeah, I heard you're a businessman.
I was a businessman. And I did.
What's the lore? What's the lore behind that?
The lore is, I was unbelievable.
Chad's calling cap, bro. Chad's saying cap. You were running down mid.
Well, I was unbelievable at the game, and I was getting offers from some of the biggest organizations in the world. And FaZe said, "Listen, you're that guy. You're that good. We can't lose you. Here's 250." I said, absolutely. And then everybody else started figuring that out. And then they started asking for it. And then bada bing, bada boom. This is how we got here.
Wait, what year was that? What year was that?
That was
2019?
World War II. That was World War II, and that was
Really?
that was
Really?
Damn.
from World War II. Then
250?
after, yeah. Yep.
Jeez.
Not bad, all right.
The first thing to say, okay, is this real, right? Are the numbers true? And when I first saw this, I thought, okay, some of this I think is guesswork, but some of it I think is actually pretty on the money. And that's what Zuma seems to agree with as well. So look, well, I will say Purge comes out and says cap. So he plays for Boston. His salary, according to this, is what, $80,000. So, you know, is that right? Is that wrong? Who knows? Obviously, is Purge saying it's higher or lower than that? The point is, I think the discrepancy between the lower teams and the top teams is actually bigger than this shows. To my understanding, last year, the guys on Surge were getting paid the absolute bare minimum. Maybe not the entire team, but certainly some of the guys on Surge last year were, I think, getting paid not even league minimum, because that's disappeared, but literally state minimum. They were getting paid as low as they possibly could. So I think the lower salaries in the league here, like, I would be shocked if Ravens are paying any more than they have to. So I think some of these numbers are not right on the bottom end, and it's kind of remarkable to say that the numbers that I'm critiquing here are the figures at the bottom of the league. I actually think there's people getting paid less than this. But on the top ends, I don't really know exactly how to judge, but I do believe that Cellium's number is pretty legit. I know that people were putting Cellium at about 500-600k. To my understanding, it is closer to this 850 figure than it is to that 600k figure. So, you know, that might be right. I think with Cell's salary and with, like, I think he got like a signing bonus or something, I think it comes to something like that, which is absolutely absurd. So I'll just quickly go through some of the other numbers, really. I mean, FaZe have Simp at 350, Drazah at 285, Afro and Abuzah slightly further down than that. Thieves is pretty interesting. HyDra and Scrap on 450, aBeZy on 300, Kenny on 185. Toronto, you know, they're doing reasonably well as well. I think Gentlemates probably, if these numbers are right, have the biggest bang for buck, as it were. There also might be some value in this just because Neptune revealed on stream the other day that he effectively was the first guy in a way to Gentlemate, and they were asking him, who do you want as your teammate? So I can see the logic there in Neptune being the higher paid player of that team. Obviously, people want to know what's going on with OpTic. Dashy 350, Shotzzy 425, Merc at 250 now. Maybe it was lower last year when he first joined, but maybe that's a re-up, as it were, for good reason. Huke at 280. That, again, I don't really know how valid a lot of these numbers are. My feeling is that a lot of these numbers for the top teams are in the right ballpark enough. I think that arguably Rancor is pretty underpaid, if this is true on Heretics, but again, I don't think Heretics have a lot of money. He was also, I mean, maybe they could, but they're being more sensible maybe than they could have been. And Rancor, we thought maybe he was going to get sold to FaZe, but he was under that 2-year deal, so they kept him on. I think Falcons, it's worth going back to them and looking at it, really, because they've got Pred at 450, Exnid at 250, which is interesting because, like, 250 feels low on the Falcons, but 250 compared to the rest of the league is a massively good salary, higher than all of the guys on Gentlemates, according to this. Kismet at 150 is, you know, interesting. You might argue that Kismet should definitely be higher paid, but like Exnid is their Saudi player, so I can understand the logic there. And also, it's not like Kismet was going to get paid any more elsewhere, right? So I suppose that works. Again, is this true? I think it's plausible that quite a lot of those numbers are reasonably close, I think. Some of them I don't think, I think there's definitely a fair bit of guesswork that's been happening there. Some players I'm sure are going to dispute it. Scrap says 450k, question mark. So maybe he doesn't think it's that high. I thought it was pretty funny. I know he's just spamming numbers here, but he went for the triple K, which probably wasn't the best thing to do. Not like he did that on purpose. But yeah, Cellium, $850,000 a year to snake a head glitch. I mean, you got to respect it, right? You got to respect it. You got to understand why he had a hard time turning that offer down. But very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.